world at home and abroad. Thank you so much for choosing Q95 tonight. This is the Global View on Q. Very warm welcome, all of our Q family listeners at home and globally. I'm Sheridan Gregoire, Mr. G. It's Tuesday, the 19th day of December 2023. I believe it is the 52nd Tuesday of 2023. It's just about 3 minutes after 8 p.m. at Q95, the big station. Sorry, we're 3 minutes late. We're live on our radio frequencies on TV and on Facebook and on YouTube. Follow us at Q95 FM radio. The on your phone numbers are on the homepage of our website at www.q95da.com. Share the live, like our pages, get the latest breaking news and reviews only on Q95, the big station. We continue to revive the spirit of graciousness, of love and peace and prosperity and unity among our Kalinago and Afro-Caribbean brothers and sisters. In our pre-Christmas show tonight, along with you, our Q family listeners, friends of Q95 of Dominica, my distinguished guest, Dr. Irving Andre. Hopefully, we'll be joined a little bit later by Tony Gabriel Christian and former IMF financial economist and UWP leader, Dr. Thompson Fontaine. And we will review the past 12 months from December 2022, when the DLP regime called what many describe as a sham snap general election, contrary to the advice of the Caribbean Court of Justice, the CCJ, and all of the opposition forces in Dominica. We have a few talking points to share with you tonight. We examine where we are now at this point in time and ask again, better off now. Somebody's mic is on. Maybe that needs to be muted. I don't know whether it's Thompson's, but I'm hearing some noises coming from the background. I hope we can keep it down a little bit. We can try. And we will offer some suggestions, of course, on the way forward for Dominica, with law and order, power of indigenous enterprise, and economic empowerment to make Dominicans prosperous and eliminate the continuing fallouts and disrepute for Nature Island. Following that infamous sham snap general election in December 22, still no electoral and campaign finance reforms and regulations, still no voter ID cards, still no virtual constituencies for overseas voting by diaspora residents, the unknown whereabouts of some 6 to 7 unaccounted billions of dollars of passport sales revenues amidst the turbulent industrial relations now surrounding curious gun thefts, frustrations of our public officers or police officers or police welfare association, the stain on Dominica's good name from the findings of reputable international investigative reporters like Al Jazeera, the OCCR Group, the Panama Papers, and more. The UK imposition of visa restrictions on Dominicans due to the lack of due diligence, scandals of passport peddling sellers and buyers, diplomatic passports in the hands of crooks and criminals, EU demanding that all revenues from the passport sales be now placed in Dominica's treasury, contrary to being placed in overseas escrow accounts in the hands of unknown persons who may be of dubious backgrounds, affiliations, and persuasions. The alleged theft of guns and ammunition at the St. Joseph police station, that was under repairs by a contractor and workmen with no police security present while the work proceeded, while a roof over the room in which the guns and ammunition were kept was allegedly removed and was exposed to inquisitive minds. The brutal murder of two very decent, law-abiding, loving French-Canadian investors reportedly in the Bois-Colette area. The growing influence of the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese nationals in the Wesley area surrounding what is being called an international airport site. The DLP government's inability to host West Indies Test cricket matches that are already booked to host due allegedly to financial constraints, while paying huge salaries increases to government ministers. The alleged mining for copper, it may not exist at all, if trespasses on private lands, impunity, allegedly to build stone quarries, the lack of competent leadership and governance. So yes, we will touch on the electoral reform. We will touch on the corruption of the CBI program. the criminal justice system, which appears to be on trial, and breaking the chains that have been imprisoning Dominicans for so long, especially in the absence of good governance. We will also ask some questions that we hope the Prime Minister, Dr. Irving Andre, Attorney Gabriel Christian, Dr. Thompson Fontaine might address. Here are a few such questions. Why did the Director of Public Prosecution not ever file charges against Jonathan Lehrer for blocking what was a public road? Why did the Attorney General fail to act to control the behavior of Jonathan Lehrer after the court named him as an intervener in the case for injunctive relief filed by the now deceased Daniel Langlois? How much has been spent by government on housing contracts with MMC? Why were the housing contracts not subject to public tender? Does Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit have a personal business interest in MMCE? Is it not a conflict of interest that the Prime Minister lives in a house supposedly built by the largest contractor doing business with the same government with which is engaged contractually? If housing recovery and other housing units built by government belong to Dominicans, well, when did the government give them a title to those homes? And who did the due diligence to authorize Jonathan Lehrer as a CBI agent? Why was Jonathan Lehrer's CBI agent status not revoked when he was known to have prevented Daniel Langlois, a bona fide investor and legitimate citizens of Dominica from the Soufriere area, from using a public road? If the Prime Minister said he was so close to Daniel Langlois that he advised him on his swimming pool when he was constructing it, why didn't the government intervene to save these people's lives? When and why was Jonathan Lehrer made a CBI agent? Why has the government of Dominica not acted to protect the reputation of the nation by disassociating itself from CBI agents who they knew or should have known were criminally inclined? Why did Prime Minister Skerrit not make the appointment of Madueke, Monfreret, Corallo, Angie Lapsenk, and other such ambassadors public knowledge by publishing their names and qualifications in the Dominica Gazette? Is it true that Prime Minister Skerrit was the one who decided that Madueke and Monfreret should be given diplomatic passports? We're just asking. We'd like to know. Is it not high time that Prime Minister Skerrit's government institute the Dominica Public Information Act to ensure the government of Dominica discloses all contracts, MOUs, appointments to the people on behalf of whom they govern, and stop the secrecy on matters which are supposed to be done in the public's interest? And is it true that Prime Minister Skerrit is the one who made the primary decision, and he is a primary decision maker as to who becomes a CBI passport selling agent? So we'll make some suggestions as to where the Dominic should go from here, and to see Dominicans prosper, rather than continue to see more land grabbing by foreign nationals and Dominican entrepreneurs continue to be displaced. We're already witnessing and feeling the effects of declining passport sales revenues from the CBI program. Will it be an issue for the DLP government to pay public officers and NEP workers on time for the carnival season and beyond? And on the heels of these devastating reports from all these international reporters and governments, we now see Dominica police carrying out investigations into the circumstances surrounding the brutal murder of philanthropic French-Canadian investor Daniel Langlois and his partner Dominique Marchand in the Bois-Colette area. Is the investigation into the alleged theft of guns at the St. Joseph police station already botched due to contaminated forensic evidence? The international press is here in Dominica. We hope the FBI, Interpol, RCMP, the French and other relevant law enforcement agencies are assisting with these investigations with a view to getting justice for Daniel and Dominic, and to bring closure for their grieving families and friends, and especially for the people and the workers of his facility at Soufriere. And what has been and is the continuing role of our Attorney General, the DPP, the police, the parliamentary representative, the cabinet of ministers, the DDA, the planning division amidst all of this? What have been their roles? What lessons will we learn from these disasters? Are these land ownership and road access disputes growing all over Dominica as we speak? Are we expecting to have more problems like these in other parts of Dominica? We call for speedy, appropriate justice for Daniel and Dominic and their families and friends who are left to mourn their loss. We will remember them in our prayers. And all of these disastrous indicators make it absolutely critical that we urgently embrace the imperative to appropriately reform our electoral and campaign finance laws and regulations without any further delay, in a manner that will yield free and fair elections on a level playing field in the next general election, in order to return Dominica to good governance, in order to enable us to make ourselves truly economically independent after 45 years of self-rule. I heard the Prime Minister in his press conference today that we should have something to do with electoral reform in the first quarter of this year, but is the public going to be engaged, or is it going to be another secretive event? Let's wait and see. But I think Dominicans should really prepare themselves to make the demand for the appropriate electoral reforms. Let's hope Dominicans step out and do that. Most Dominicans believe that we are more dependent now than we were under the past governments in terms of personal and household incomes, in terms of land and home ownership and living wage employment as compared to past years. But with good governance, hopefully in the not too distant future, Dominica's days are still, the better days are still ahead of us, and young people will finally be able to benefit meaningfully in that transition. But Dominicans are now feeling the pinch in their pockets. I guess Dr. Irving Andre, Attorney Gabriel Christian, if he joins us later, and Dr. Thompson Fontaine, and you, our cherished listeners and callers, will make the case for the urgency of arriving at a consensus now on the way forward for our nature isle, and move ahead to accomplish that objective with crystal clear people's power. That appears to be the only way to bring back good governance to Dominica, to fix the economy, restore respect to the country's devastated image and reputation at home and abroad due to corrupt passport transactions and major due diligence failures. So we invite you, our Q family friends of Dominica, to stay with us on our radio and TV frequencies in Dominica, on our live stream on the internet at www.q95da.com, on Facebook or YouTube, and have your say as you do every Tuesday on the Global View on Q on the big station. And our usual huge shout out, hugs and love and appreciation. A big thank you to you, our healthcare providers, our frontline workers, police and fire officers, teachers, doctors, nurses, and other public and private sector patriots at home and abroad. We welcome every Dominican and friend of Dominica to the Global View on Q tonight. Embrace you wherever you are, in every nook and cranny, in every village, in every community at home, in Dominica, in the region, and globally. Thank you, Sherwin, keeping us on the air. Thank you, Lambi, on the console, directing the traffic. We will take your calls a little later. The people's voice is always a priority on the Global View on Q. Call us anytime in the program. Lambi will just give us a signal. We will take your calls. But let's get started right now. You get a first word in getting the ball rolling, Dr. Andrew, with your first presentation. I hope you and my other distinguished guests will touch on electoral reform, corruption of the CBI program, the criminal justice system that appears to be on trial now, and the breaking the chains that are imprisoning Dominicans now, as you take your first of several presentations, especially in the absence of good governance. So let me just go over to you now, Dr. Irving Andre.
Good evening to you, Mr. G. Good evening to Lambi. Good evening to Sherwin. Good evening to your devoted listeners. Good evening to Dominica. Let me say compliments of the season to one and all.
Let's not forget Dr. Fontaine is always with us.
Oh, Dr. Fontaine. Yes, I'm not seeing him, but yes, he's in fact with us, and hopefully Gabriel. I think I can congratulate Dr. Fontaine on his victory in terms of leadership of the United Workers' Party. I was going to congratulate Gabriel because Gabriel was just appointed to a commission with respect to criminal justice or justice in Maryland. Right. But when he shows up, I will commend him personally.
Certainly.
I commend him for that, and I commend all those who dream of a better Dominica. We are in December. And once upon a time, Mr. G, a long time ago, in December, we would all sing with gusto the lyrics of Silent Night, Holy Night. We would all dwell in heavenly peace. We would all look forward to a festive season where people greet each other with great cheer. We would all forget the divisions which afflicted us on a daily basis and celebrate the fact that we are children of the Almighty Father, bound together by a common humanity, a common dignity, and a common integrity. Unfortunately, that reality no longer exists. December, in fact, has become a metaphor for negativity in Dominica. It is somewhat ironic, Mr. G, that just yesterday the 18th, I believe, was the funeral of a great West Indian poet, Professor Emeritus, a scholar. His name is Dr. Eddie Ball, not known to many West Indians, but a giant intellectual field. And one of his most significant books, written way back in 1978, was a book on the poetry of Nobel laureate Derek Walcott, St. Lucian fame. And the subtitle of that book was The Poetry of Decolonization. Ironically, in December 2023, we cannot celebrate any poetry of decolonization because we are afflicted by a poison tree called the politics of recolonization. December, as I said, has become a period when dark things have fallen from the poison tree. It was in December a few years past that the home of Magistrate Clenny Emmanuel was firebombed, if my memory serves me right. It was in December, if I recall correctly, that the home of then opposition leader Lennox Linton was visited by mercenaries, escorted to Linton's home by a member of the police. It was somewhat interesting that a senior police officer, now retired, said earlier, either this week or last week, that Dominica has one of the best police forces in the Caribbean. What a joke. What a silly, sad joke. An embarrassment, really, from that senior police officer, who I know very well. It was in December, was it not, that we have vehicles driving around in the middle of the night, distributing hams and turkeys for the party faithful, distributed on the strictest or the most partisanship of criteria. Only those identified as loyal supporters of the electorate are given assistance at a most festive season, at a time when no colors of partisanship were recognized in the past. It was also in December, for the last few electoral cycles, that we've had elections in which there is blatant and systemic and systematic state-sponsored electoral fraud, aided and abetted by a few senior members of the Dominican Constabulary. So December, sadly, Mr. G, has become not that time of heavenly cheer, but a time where we bear witness to the, not erosion, but the evisceration or eradication of all that we hold dear as a democracy. Wasn't it earlier today that our Prime Minister was inviting the opposition that he would give, note the word please, because he is the new political messiah, he would give the opposition, how nice of him, 2 or 3 seats if they just join him so that we have one political party in total violation of the Constitution, which recognizes an opposition party as part of our democratic form of governance. So make no mistake about it. We are living in an era where we are bearing witness, sadly, to a situation where there is not even an attempt to adhere to the Constitution. There is not even an attempt to maintain decency in the institution of governance. There is not even an attempt to recognize the right of persons under the Constitution to associate with whichever party they wish, to freely express themselves, to associate or join any institutions they wish without fear of political persecution. And today, the Prime Minister was inviting the now leader of the United Workers' Party to come and meet with him while handcuffing him to the criminal justice system, handcuffing those who oppose the directorate to the chains of the criminal justice system. Also in December, we bore witness to the murder of this honest-to-goodness Canadian investor who acted in great decency and integrity towards the people of Soufriere, Gallier, and Scottshead. He was murdered in a fashion which was senseless and which could have been easily avoided. But as I said, Mr. G, all that is the fruit of the poison tree. The tree of life in terms of our democratic traditions. The tree which ensures that we continue to exist as a free and independent nation. The tree which gives us the sustenance to be able to express our votes every 5 years, to have the right to exercise our choice, to vote for whoever we wish for. That tree has been poisoned, so that the stem of all those problems that we have relates to the perversion and the corruption of the electoral process. And it exposes the dire need for true electoral reform, not reform which enables that thievery to continue unchecked in perpetuity, not those cynical reforms which fail to deal in a fundamental fashion with spending in terms of elections, not the cynical type of reforms which enable the incumbent to manipulate the system as it has done, not the type of reforms which does not stop the scourge of voters illegally being imported into Dominica during elections to vote, not the type of reforms which enable certain members of the constabulary to be conscripted in the corruption of Dominican elections, not the type of reforms which proposes an electoral commission which remains in the control of the political directorate, not the type of reforms which ensures that one party has an overwhelming, not so much majority, has an overwhelming say in electoral spending, but real, genuine reforms which will not be delivered to us on a platter, reforms which only Dominicans can ensure. That is the root of the problem. The corruption identified by the international journalists a mere months ago is just part of the fruit of the poison tree. It shows why there is an urgent need for electoral reform, because the report exposes what we've known before, that those who are receiving passports are not bona fide investors like Daniel, who was murdered, but persons who are fleeing from justice. Many of them, not all of them, but many of them. This is why the Tom, Dick, and Harry of the criminal underworld in Europe, in Afghanistan, in the Far East, have ended up with Dominican passports. This is not coincidence. Some of them have been delivered those passports on a platter, filled with Christmas or reverent cheer. Dominican citizenship has been given or hawked or battered to crooks and criminals all over. And so it is by no accident that the Maduikis of this world, the Alpha Reds, and those others, nameless persons, have ended up with our passports because they're being hawked to the highest bidder. What is the end result of that? Many of those, not all, but many of those involved in the scheme, they are involved for their own selfish reasons. And when we think about the tragic death of this fella, Danny, and his partner in Soufriere, we have to understand that this is the logical outcome of that policy of selling the soul of Dominica. And in so doing, we are creating a situation where a few persons are being treated as if they are white Rhodesians. The same Rhodesia where in the last decade or two, the whole question of white supremacy ruled the country. And that is what it appears to be the case with Dominica. This fella, Jonathan, was known for years to be running roughshod over the rights not only of Danny and his partner, but also of people from Soufriere, people from Galion. It was well known. But you see, Mr. G, he was one of those white Rhodesians that have been given free rein in Dominica. No law could curb him or stop him, because he was a member of that inner circle of passport sellers who are above the law. That's the problem. This guy was literally sacrificed because the state and law enforcement agents refused to take action against someone who was openly, blatantly, and capriciously victimizing persons who had used that public road for decades, victimizing persons from the free enjoyment of their property. He was an untouchable, a white Rhodesian. And so Danny paid the price, because this guy felt that he had free rein to do whatever he wanted. He was given or sold a rare slave plantation. He was sold. I don't know the circumstances of that sale, but the whole case is a metaphor of everything that is wrong. I heard after it was discovered the deaths of these people, and I heard a journalist, I have to say he was good intentioned, singing the praises of the director of prosecution and the police, how well and how quickly they acted. Nonsense. Foolishness. The best practice is when there's an investigation into a murder, Mr. G. The home of the suspect is cordoned off. The public or everyone is prevented from having access to that place. Was the home of this fellow cordoned off, Mr. G? If it was cordoned off, it must have been by invisible police tape, because I didn't see it. But you know what, Mr. G? And that has placed Dominica on the front pages of many newspapers, not only in Canada, but also in England and the United States. 2 lawyers were given access to the place. This is unprecedented. It just shows you the jungle justice that exists in Dominica. They were given access to the place. And you know what? And if the images I saw on the electronic media or social media, if those images are true and represents what actually happened, if these folks were given access to the place, and if the images I saw of papers being burned in a barrel as if it's like a piece of chicken that was in that house, then it tells the world that what presents itself in Dominica can be described as jungle justice. Not merely a contamination of the scene, because one would expect that with this huge burns which was seen at the back of the leg of one of the 2 who've been arrested, one would think that those who have been involved in this investigation would have said that perhaps we should look for some type of accelerant at the home, or we should look for some type of firearm. And we don't need to bring this Jonathan fellow to oh Jesus, to the house to help us search for evidence. You have to keep him away. And I'm told that a magistrate signed a warrant for them to bring him to the house. No wonder this new judge had to be so scathing in his indictment of the local magistracy. In a sense, it might be somewhat unfair because one can't paint every magistrate with the same brush. So the case has already exposed to the world or people in criminal justice that what happens in Dominica in terms of investigation of crime can be described as a travesty. All this, as I say, is the fruit of the poisoned tree. And we have to understand that in no other year of Dominica's history have we been exposed as an island nation to so much negative publicity internationally. Not by persons who have expressed concerns about the criminal justice system, the political system, what's the victimization. Not by those people, but persons who have investigated the sale of passports by Dominica, persons who have come to Dominica following the death of these 2 innocent persons, persons who have lamented about evidence of wrongdoing linked to the highest sources in Dominica, persons who are concerned about who is ending up with Dominican passports. No amount of washing your hands in the Layo River will cleanse the stain or the stench of corruption from Dominica. No amount of silent night will remove the stench, because it's all out there as we speak. Even as we speak, we have members of the opposition party who've expressed views, who've taken action entirely consistent with their rights under the Constitution. They face charges of incitement. We have another one, Brian Linton, who faced a Mickey Mouse charge of treason. Treason. Treason? Persons who've expressed their right to be critical of their government if they so choose. Persons who've decided to walk on Wednesdays. Not even a little rat on the street. They have not even the rights of a little rat on the street in Roseau, and I know they're none. They've violated. But they've been charged with what? Trespass? Or I'm not even sure, so I'll give up with those kind of charges because some of them have no basis in law. But that's what we're dealing with. And it's only Dominica can save Dominica. It's only Dominica who can set that ship right. Many people will be ostracized. Many people will be victimized. Many innocent people in need of help will be ignored, will be destroyed, will be deprived of a little help. And bear in mind, in many cases, it's their taxpayers' money that is paying for those hams and turkeys and whatever it is that have been distributed in the middle of the night.
Yes, Dr. Andre, let me just, so I noticed that we lost Dr. Fontaine a minute ago. I know that he's been in Soufriere. I mean, really be giving full support to the people of Soufriere in the event that they're having to really recognize the good works that Daniel and Dominic had done. And I think it was a very noble idea of whoever organized that to have done that and to invite everyone, I think including the government representatives, to participate in that function. I want to go over to Dr. Fontaine in a minute for him to give us an idea of what is happening there in Soufriere, but also, first of all, to congratulate, along with you, let me add my words of congratulations to Dr. Fontaine on his re-election as leader of the United Workers' Party, and also to Ronald Charles as the deputy leader, and also to Mr. Lennox Linton, who has been re-elected as the president. I think Sparks John is the deputy president, vice president. I don't remember all of the other names of the new executive. I guess Dr. Fontaine will tell us, and he comes on now. I know that Mr. Isaac Baptiste, I think, is back on the executive of EWP. I just want to congratulate Dr. Fontaine and his deputy and all of the members of the executive for the election. Truly, democracy at work. So, Dr. Fontaine, I wanted to bring you in now and see if you add your few words to this in your introductory remarks. First of all, I mean, please give us all the members of your executive who have been newly elected and now comprise the executive so that everybody can know who they are really. And then tell us a little bit about whatever it is that you want to tell us about tonight. Are you with us? If Dr. Fontaine is with us, we're not hearing him, so maybe showing there's a problem. But we can see he's there, but for some reason his audio is not coming through. So he may have to log off and log back in. I'm not sure, Sherwin, whether you can help Dr. Fontaine with that. But we're certainly not hearing him. But Dr. Andre, so let me just go back to you until we can get Dr. Fontaine's technical problem rectified. I mean, really, it's truly remarkable some of the things you've said about that poison chalice. I mean, when I listened to the Prime Minister extending a hand, well, a so-called hand of reaching out to the opposition and saying, no, we should talk, we should form a government of national unity. But at the same time, Dr. Fontaine, are you able to communicate with us now? Not yet? Or are you still trying to fix up his little technical problem? When I heard the Prime Minister saying that, Dr. Andre, and then I listened to what you're saying a while ago. In fact, How can you tell me you want to speak to people, you handcuff them, you arrest them on bogus charges, and you have them for 5 years in court? The case cannot be heard up to now. And then you want to pretend that you want to talk to them to form a government of national unity. And then you want to say, to add insult to injury, you're telling them that I will take all the seats and I will give you three of them. And forget about forming. Let's just have a one-party state. Forget about all this thing about division and different political parties. Let's have one party. Now, that is the same prime minister, obviously, that I heard, in fact, tell a reporter at that same press conference today that he was planning to leave politics in 25, I think he said. He's planning to go, but at the same time, he's telling the people, let's form one party. I'll keep you handcuffed. We're not going to tell you when your case will be called. Every time you come, no matter how much money it costs you, we're going to send you back and tell you we can't hear it. Now, we have no evidence. Of course, if we had it, we'd have presented it. But we have no evidence, but still we can let you come and keep coming and keep sending you back. You know, it was, I think, Judge Williams who said to us, this is nonsense going on in Dominica. You have all these cases and you just cannot hear them. I really, and Dr. Andre, maybe you can give us some of your experience and advice on this, because it seems to me this case should be thrown out for want of prosecution.
Well, 5 years. Is it 5 or is it 6? 2017, 6 years. And the case is still in the court system. Incitement. I can indicate to you that certainly where I preside, the longest a case can be in the system is 30 months. And it can only be allowed to continue to trial if there are quote unquote exceptional circumstances. I know of no exceptional circumstances with respect to this case. But look at this case. They are paying lawyers from Trinidad millions of dollars to prosecute. Nothing has been done. And if what I've heard is true, they've paid them millions. But in this case of Daniel and his partner who were killed, there has been no move or no announcement to bring in a special prosecutor. Well, that is significant. Why? I may be wrong and I stand to be corrected, but if it is true that one of the lawyers for this fellow, Jonathan, is Lennox Lawrence, and if it is true that the head prosecutor in that case is the current DPP, then who in Dominica with their right mind can have any confidence in the successful prosecution of this fellow Jonathan? Let me ask you this, Mr. G, because my memory is fading. I don't know. It's probably too much sorrel I'm drinking these days. I don't understand that. When the DPP nolliprost that case sent down by the CCJ to be tried in the magistrate's court, which lawyer, what was the name of the lawyer which wrote to the DPP requesting, or some might say ordering, her to nolliprost the case? What was the name? Tell me.
You want to know the name of the
lawyer who wrote to the DPP?
I think I heard one or two names mentioned. I'm not sure which one of them, because I heard Mr. Lawrence names were involved. I'm not sure which lawyer in particular.
Well, I heard the same name bandied about. And if it is true, as I think it is, that is the case, my question still stands. What confidence can any reasonable person, fully apprised of how the judicial or criminal justice system should work, what confidence would that person have that this prosecution will be done in a manner that reflects all the interests of justice?
Well, let me just interrupt you 1 second again, Dr. Andre. I think Dr. Thompson Fontaine may be back with us. I hope we've solved the technical problem. Thompson, are you with us?
All right. Well, let's see if we have. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you very well. Very well. Go right ahead. I was saying earlier on that I wanted to congratulate you on your team, on your executive, and you'll give us their names so that everybody can know who they are. And truly, we saw democracy at work. I believe in your delegates convention. It's good to see that. It's not something that you see very often in Dominica these days. And certainly, we want to congratulate you on your team. And we tell us a little bit about what is happening, and then whatever it is you want to share with us tonight. I mean, as you know, you've seen the snap election from 2022, and a lot of things have happened between now and then. So maybe you can give us some of your suggestions as you make your opening remarks here.
Yes, well, good night again to our many listeners, and it is an honor to be with you tonight out of the beautiful village of Sufria. It's a wonderful night. It's beautiful sea breezes coming across the land, and it's a wonderful time that we have in here. Wonderful time in the sense that it's a great sense of community. It's a great sense of togetherness that is being exhibited. As you know, the people are there to honor the life of Daniel Langlois, who is a giant in this community. He lived in and among the people for many, many years, and different people were paying tribute to him tonight. And just remembering his loss, what struck me that most tonight is the pain that has been expressed. The people that are still expressing the hurt and the pain of having lost them. One gentleman says that his son, who is a taxi driver, cries every day. He's still crying, literally mourning over him. There is a counselor there as well with the people who spoke to them to try to encourage them on the importance of grieving and going through this. I was able to witness the huge jetty that was built in the village. There was talk of him building the primary school, and the former principal talking about the great help that he gave to the school, giving them computers and just the work that was done in the community. It does appear that he meant a lot to the people of Sofia, and that is covered very, very strongly tonight. So I was just happy to be wrong. I was asked to speak, but I said no. I just want to listen and to take in, what's going on. I think after all, it's for the people of Sofia. My presence there tonight is more to support them. Quietly and silently, but not to speak. I did not know the gentleman. I mean, I would like to speak to the issues of land grabbing in Dominica and how, the issue of the access to the public road. But I don't think tonight was a time for that. I think it was just a more or less personal reflections that were being had. And I think in that spirit, I wanted to just be a quiet observer. It is still going on. People are still talking. People are still paying tribute, and more people are coming on. More and more people are coming there, and then it's it's happening. It's happening in a big way there in the community there of Sofia. So yes, so I'm told that it should be coming to an end in just a few minutes, but nonetheless, it has been quite an interesting event. Now, and of course, I'll talk a little bit about the death and what it's meant, for us here in Dominica. But just to go back, Mr. G, to your question that you raised about the our elections that took place yesterday, I was elected the political leader for the second year in a row, and with the deputy Ronald Charles, the president, Honorable Lennox Linton. Our vice president is Sparks Hector John. The secretary is Nicholas George. The treasurer, Kent Joseph. Assistant treasurer is Mr. Isaac Baptist. Assistant secretary is Mrs. Diane. And also the PRO, the Public Relations Officer, is Mr. Steve Benjamin, and the International Secretary, Dr. McDonald Thomas. So these are the individuals, and of course, the trustees, former Prime Minister Ellison James, Mr. Norris Prevost, and teacher Ernie Johnson. So it is certainly was a good event. I mean, an exercise in democracy that went on yesterday, and so we're looking forward to working with the executive and to really moving the agenda of the party forward. And of course, there are lots of issues to be dealt with, a lot of issues to confront as we go forward. We have a major battle ahead of us with regards to the electoral reform and ensuring that within the electoral reform agenda are the key reforms that we have been requesting. And key among those, of course, is a clean voters list, voter ID cards, and access, free and equal access to the national radio station. So we're hoping that this will in fact happen. We heard the Prime Minister say today that that is on the cards for January, something we'll be keeping a very close watch on. We'll also be monitoring beyond the legislation, monitoring the process of re-registration, because what we have been calling for all along is a level playing field that will allow all political parties to be equally engaged in the process, that will not give any one party advantage over the other. And I hope that we'll get that. I hope that this can be done without too much problems, and that the Prime Minister will leave this as a legacy for the people of Dominica, a level playing field, an established platform through which democracy can thrive and grow in Dominica. Of course, other issues of deep concern for me as political leader is the state of the youth in this country. The fact that our youth has not been given a fair chance with regards to employment opportunities, with regards to education, with regards to forging a future for themselves. That's a huge concern of mine, and is an area where we'll continue as a party. We'll put a lot of focus and emphasis on. We need to really place a good focus on the youth, how we can develop the youth, how we can develop the young people of this country, because that has to be for us as a party one of our key priorities. If we're not able to take care of our young people, then we would have failed. And as such, we are hoping that in the next few months we can outline our vision for the youth of Dominica. We can outline our vision for the development of the country with a focus on economic growth, with a focus on creating new methods and new areas of employment for the people of Dominica. We can discuss opportunities with regards to revamping the agriculture sector, the manufacturing sector, our tourism sector, improving our services, and going and moving very steadfastly into the knowledge industries and making use of technology and giving access to the people of Dominica and to our young people. So there's a lot of work ahead, a lot of strategizing to do with regards to being on the ground and reaching out to the people. As I've said repeatedly, the United Workers' Party is a party for all of Dominica. We are not going to discriminate. We believe that everybody that wants to be a part of us should be a part of us. We have a big tent. Ours is one of unity. Ours is one of bringing the country together. Ours is one of ensuring that everyone is treated equally. We do not want to see us divide this country along these lines of red and blue and green, but rather having everyone work together. In my firm belief, we are better people when we work together, when we join hands, when we commit ourselves to a common goal, a common vision. And that is what I'm all about. That is what I'll be continuing to preach religiously to the people of Dominica, and really hope that this message resonates with the people. I think we've been divided for a very, very long time in Dominica. A division that has stalled our progress, a division that has taken us back, a division that has stunted our growth, a division that has made us a people that is really worse off than we really should be. And so we continue, to hope and pray that we can move forward in that way and really, appeal to a broad cross section of Dominican society as we seek to move forward in the year ahead.
Dr. Fontaine, before we move on to some of the substantial things we're going to talk to, I just wanted to bring your mind back to something. When you became the leader of the United Workers' Party a year ago, I recall that Prime Minister Skerrit reached out to you. And it's been a whole year since that time. He still has you in handcuffs, facing the courts, and asking you to come back and talk to him again this year, in handcuffs again, have charges against you. I mean, is this a serious offer to talk? Or, I mean, is this just a joke? Because it seems to me that if you are indicating that you want to talk to people and that you want to eliminate duplices and so on, why is it that you just cannot do the right thing and drop these frivolous charges? Obviously, they are bogus charges, because if they were not bogus, frivolous charges, they would have been prosecuted in the courts, and they wouldn't be pushing this thing back and pushing it back for want of prosecution, because they have no evidence to support the charges. What do you think of the fact that he's still continuing to send out what he's hoping that people will think he's a nice guy, so he's reaching out to Thompson Fontaine, and it's obvious that there's meaningless. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, it's interesting that you raise that, because we've always told the Prime Minister that those charges are politically motivated. And not only are they politically motivated, you know, the whole justice system is being usurped. The whole justice system is being turned upside down. Our law, I heard Dr. Andre indicate that in Canada it is 30 months. In Dominica, it's actually 24 months within which you must bring anybody charged before the courts. I am approaching 7 years. It will be 7 years in February. So we've gone 3 times the length of time that was supposed to have been where we were brought in before the court. So, you know, the whole system of justice has been trampled upon simply to prosecute us. So when the Prime Minister talks about wanting to meet me, I think he needs to show some good faith and really drop those charges. And I say he, because it seems it's no longer the court system operating. I mean, the high-priced lawyers costing the our country in the millions of dollars, I'm told, to prosecute this particular myself and Miss Linton and Honorable Edison James and the others. You know, all of this that has been done and the cost that has been incurred to the people, to the taxpayers of Dominica, for certainly charges that we certainly did not commit. You know, we have moved in the court, and we did on Friday that the charges be dropped. The magistrate indicated that she will need until the 14th of February to make a decision, since the court is in recess for the Christmas break. And so, you know, we wait to see what transpires. But it's certainly something I think the Prime Minister would certainly, you know, promote his cause if he were to, you know, drop those charges and allow us, you know, to move about our daily lives without having this thing hanging over our heads.
Well, Dr. Andrew, help me out there. It seems to me that for 7 years, we've had external lawyers coming into Dominica, incurring millions of dollars, I understand. The country's paying them. And what are they really paying them for? For a case not to be prosecuted. Because it seems to me that every time they come, the case is postponed. No evidence is brought, no evidence is presented, and the case is postponed for 7 years. Aren't you paying these people for the case not being prosecuted?
Well, you have to juxtapose that one inexcusable expenditure with the fact that public servants haven't been given a decent wage raise increase. Nurses, for God's sakes, haven't been treated fairly in terms of whatever package that they receive in terms of salaries and benefits. Teachers, the same category. And juxtapose that to the obscene increases in salary given to the members of the political directorate, only in Dominica. Think about the bonuses owned by foreign persons, white Rhodesians, in terms of the sale of Dominican passports, compared to the assistance, or should I say the lack thereof, given to Dominicans on the ground, whose only so-called crime is that they have exercised their constitutional right to support whoever they wish. They haven't thrown stones at anybody. They haven't blocked anybody's vehicle. They haven't damaged anybody's property. But they're treated as if, quite frankly, they are criminals in their own land. And this is the sad state of affairs, while we can no longer sing O holy night, the stars are brightly shining. You cannot sing that in good faith because the good cheer has been sucked out of the time, the season of joy and peace and reverence and good cheer.
But Dr. Andre, let me ask you this, and maybe Thompson, you can jump in and help me out here. You know, if Brian Linton been charged for treason, Edison James for incitement, Lennox Linton for incitement, who else again? Thompson Fountain for incitement. Those are the people being charged for incitement. After 7 years, if the prosecution refuses to prosecute the case, which is what is happening basically because they're just not prosecuting. Every time the case comes up, the date comes up, they postpone. So obviously, they're supposed to be prosecuting this case and they're not. What would it be the position of these defendants who are being charged frivolously if this thing is kind of, would they have the right to bring file any kind of lawsuits against the government for doing this to them for 7 years? What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Andre and Thompson? And are you guys considering that?
The whole question of civil action against the authorities for charges for which there is no legal basis, that is always open. But it is the criminal justice system that is on trial. It's the criminal justice system that is allowing the state to run roughshod over the rights of citizens with impunity. It is the criminal justice system that has the authority to stay these charges or to stop the prosecution from violating people's rights to have a trial within a reasonable period. Now, just to correct one thing, I said a few minutes ago that in Canada, in my jurisdiction, the allowable or permissible amount of delay in the superior court, not in the lower court, is 30 months. In the lower court, it is 18 months, 1/8. 1/8. The prosecution has to get its ducks in order. You cannot leave criminal charges hanging over the heads of a citizen who is presumed to be innocent for years. We are in a banana republic, but we're not in a banana republic because there's hardly any bananas to sell these days. This is the problem. It's blatant. It's outrageous.
So, Dr. Fontaine, I mean, I have to come back to you now because, I mean, as I said, you have so many gentlemen, all in the opposition. It seems to me that we are just arresting and bringing false charges and bogus charges against members of the opposition, especially the leaders in the opposition. Are you guys seriously talking to your lawyers about filing any kind of lawsuits to get back your good name? Because I mean, after 7 years to have this thing and not prosecuting it for whatever reason, are you guys seriously considering? Are you talking to your lawyers about bringing some civil suit?
Yes, well, Mr. J, if I could respond to that, I in fact have a lawsuit already before the courts here in Dominica for unlawful arrest. Because when I was arrested after a weekend of literally going on the ground, because I was we're having a meeting in Castlebrose, and I received, it was about 9:30 at night, when I received a very disturbing call that a van load of heavily armed officers had left the police station to come to Castlebrose to arrest me. So once I got this information, I immediately went underground with the help of the people in the area. I disappeared myself, so to speak. That was on a Friday night. And I stayed hidden for all night Friday. And I've not revealed that before to the public, so most people are hearing that for the first time. And so I stayed out that night, Friday night, and stayed out the whole day Saturday. Food was brought, just like you see in the movies, because I literally feared for my life. I was very fearful that if a government was prepared to send police officers at 9:30 at night, dressed in military fatigues, to arrest me, that probably I would never see the light of day. I literally feared for my life. When they went to Castle they did not find me. They went up to Grand Fort. They arrived in Grand Fort in the early hours of the morning. Awoke my parents, my father who was there in the house at that time, and so on, looking in search of me. So I decided then to emerge because I figured now that on the Sunday I would go, they would know where I am. I went to the station to do my weekly Sunday program. And when I left the program, as soon as I left the station, I was arrested. But when I was arrested, I was told that I'm being charged with treason. I'm being charged for attempting to overthrow the government. So that's what I was told by the arresting officer, dressed in military fatigues with a very long gun. Thank God I was used to those long guns so that when I'm in South Sudan, they no longer bother me. So we had the situation, and then so I brought the suit against this government because I was let go without any charges, and several months later, I was issued a summons. The summons made no mention of trying to overthrow the government, but rather it mentioned the fact that I had incited people to violence. So that case is moving through the court system right now. In fact, I'm supposed to have something this December, but it was again postponed. But that is something that we are pursuing.
Yeah, so Dr. Andre, maybe you can take it from here because I mean you listen to what Dr. Thompson Fontaine is saying, but I am as an ordinary citizen, I'm not an attorney. I really have no expertise in that field. I have to rely on the lawyers. It seems to me that all these victims, these people like Lennox Linton and Edison James and Brian Linton and then Dr. Thompson Fontaine and all the others who have been frivolously charged and dragged before the courts and kept in chains as handcuffed for 7 years. I mean, the law must allow them to file some charges to get back your good name. I mean, and all this money that it has cost them, and look what is happening. The state is spending so much of taxpayers' money on this. And I mean, you have people coming and spending millions of dollars, I understand. And every time they come, they go back because they're using external attorneys. They have to go back, and there's no case, and they have to come back again. How many more years is that going to continue? How much money is going to cost the state? And is there any intention at all of prosecuting this case? And you listen to what Dr. Thompson said, and he's now filing a civil suit. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, again, as I said, no amount of water or detergent or refresh soap, even they still make it, can wash the stain of iniquity, of persecution from these charges. They stink to high heaven. But so when we talk about offers of conciliation, offers of meeting the opposition, we have to remember that cloven hoof of intimidation that exists in our democracy. We cannot ignore the stench of unfairness, of victimization that is pervading the landscape even as we speak. You know, these folks, those persons who've been charged, can walk with their heads held high because they haven't incited anybody. Have they invited people to throw hot water on those who don't support them? Have they tell people that if they vote for the opposition, there'll be blood on the streets? Have they told people to go up in the faces of who don't support them and shout at them that they have committed treason or words to that effect? Have they done any of these things? And yet the persons who've done these things or said these things are not even given a second look by state agents. They have done so with impunity. And this is why it is important for the world to see what's happening in Dominica. This is why it's important for the world to have covered what happened to Daniel Langlois and his partner, because this was a murder that was waiting to happen. A foreigner allowed to block people's access to their own properties, to their farms, to unleash dogs, to harass persons, tour operators. On social media, foreign visitors were complaining about the treatment this fellow gave them. And nobody saw it. What a joke. Nobody in authority saw it. Nobody saw this was a tragedy waiting to happen. Nobody. This is not an accident. This is not some tragic development. This was waiting to happen because it was allowed to happen. For what purpose? Years ago, Mr. G, an American president, speaking of a leader of the Dominican Republic called Rafael Trujillo, you know what he said, Mr. G? And pardon the language. He said, that leader who was very ruthless, he said, he may be an SOB, but he is our SOB. And that has been the institutional attitude towards the excesses of this fellow called Jonathan. And who has paid the price? The persons employed from Soufriere and Scottsdale and Gallion by Daniel Langlois at that wonderful place that he built, that labor of love. They're the ones victimized. Those persons who received a weekly wage higher than the basic wage paid by Dominicans, by Dominican workers, certainly in the NEP, they are the biggest losers and the economy in that part of Dominica.
But Dr. I want to go back, I really want to insist that we deal with this thing, because I am really astonished. And when I think about it, somebody sent me a message and said that they heard that the Attorney General said that outside legal services had to be sought out of Dominica in order to avoid political interference. I mean, can you imagine that? If that is true, can you imagine that? Then I mean, come on. Who these guys think they're fooling? I mean, that is just not. So are you going to spend 10 more million, go up to spend $20 million for the next 5 years and say you're just going to spend the people's money frivolously and never prosecute a frivolous charge that you bring in against people? That makes no sense. And I think Dominicans ought to understand their money is being spent very unwisely. You're spending this money on outsiders, taking this money, sending it out of the country. That's the people's tax money that they can hardly afford to pay. I mean, look at the price of groceries. I mean, inflation is setting in, and people are paying for their nose and the VAT. Are you telling me that you're going to keep Dr. Thompson Fountain and Brian Linton and Lennox Linton, Edison James and Danny Logue and all these people hanging in there for 7-10 years just so you can spend the money frivolously and keep the people's handcuffs, so that because they are opposing you? Dr. Fontaine, I don't know, but it seems to me that, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. In fact, when we went to the court on Friday for a simple obstruction charge, and we were being told that we can't.
I'm not sure whether Dr. Fontaine is on. His mic seemed to have a little difficulty again. But somebody told me that, in fact, Dr. Andre, that the Attorney General may have said that in Parliament, that is the reason why they are bringing in outside attorneys, is so that there will be no semblance of political interference. I mean, have you ever heard of foolishness like that?
Well, there's method in that madness, quite frankly. It's all being done in a very cynical, self-serving, capricious way. Again, as I said, there is no even pretense
Where
at trying to
had
maintain
they been
a sense
it
of decency and objectivity. I'm getting some feedback, Mr. G. And that's the problem. There's no basic attempt to do things even in accordance with the best standards in terms of justice, in terms of prosecution of cases, in terms of the charging persons of offenses where appropriate. It's always been based on a political imperative which is designed to victimize those who have been identified as the major opponents of the political directorate. That is the justification for law enforcement to a significant degree in Dominica. You cannot build a state based on that type of attitude towards criminal justice or justice in general. You know, like I said, you're exposing the world to the ugly realization that we have a police state and we have a dictator on our backs. And that's a problem. That's a major problem because it's entirely inconsistent with our democratic tradition.
But do you think, Dr. Andre, that the purpose of this exercise is not just to spend the poor people's money very unwisely, but also to try to impoverish the defendants, the people who they frivolously charge, because they have to be spending money on lawyers and losing all kind of time for work. Do you think it's really the intention is to try to impoverish these people?
Well, absolutely. That is part of the whole process to tie them down, to ensure that at some point they will come a begging. And there is ample precedent for that. You can start with the speaker. They will come begging for forgiveness. They will come seeking forgiveness from God. And I'm not talking about the Prince of Peace. I'm talking about the government of Dominica. They will come singing Hosanna in the highest. They will follow the lead of some pastors, hoping to be rewarded with a duty-free SUV. What a bunch of hypocrites.
Lambi, I think we should take the people's calls. I mean, we really been going here now. We cannot forget to take the people's calls. Please give out the numbers and let's take some calls until I believe Dr. Samson Fontaine, we lost him for a minute. I'm pretty sure that he will be coming back in any minute. He's probably on the road, and that is why he lost contact. But so let me take some calls.
You are listening to the Global View and Q. The numbers are 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257. All local numbers. The overseas number 305-432-9624. Let me run those numbers one more time. 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257, and 305-432-9624. And we're standing by for your calls. We'll pass it back to you, Mr. G.
All right. Yes. While you're waiting, just make me a signal as soon as you have a call, and I'll just interrupt and come back to you right away. Dr. Andre, I mean, this is unthinkable, I just cannot understand this. In what other country in the world can this happen? I don't know any other country in which it can happen, and for people to tolerate that nonsense. How can you do that to your citizens? Dr. Fontaine was in the studio at Q95 at the time. They say this incitement of sick. How did he get involved in that? And yet he's dragged before the court for 7 years. This man should be paid a lot of money for all the sacrifice he had to make. Lambi, let's take a call from Lambi.
Good evening, caller. Thanks for joining us. Go ahead, please.
Yes, yes, good evening. I just wanted to add one little comment. Something mentioned being asked to speak and not speaking, and I feel like as a leader, he should have taken the opportunity just to say good night or whatever. You know, whenever a leader is asked to come forward and talk, I think something should be said by that leader. But that's just my point of view, and that's all I have. Good program.
I did not quite hear what you were saying that he should come and say. You want to repeat that? I didn't quite hear that.
So I was saying that something mentioned being superior and being asked to speak, but he did not speak. I was saying that a leader, whenever called forward to say something, you know, should always say something. You know, be it brief or be it whatever. You know, he should have made his presence felt. But
Okay.
overall, it's been a good program. I'm tuned in.
Okay, I'm with you. I think what he said is that he did not think it was a time to bring in politics, and he did not know the man, and he did not.
Right.
And
No,
so
I understand that.
therefore he didn't want to pretend as if he knew them. You understand? So I think he said he would stay there and just see
Right.
the.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
No, I understand his point. I was just saying that his presence as a leader, you know, and pushing his brand, pushing the leadership brand and so on. But no, he does have a point with what he was saying, and I do understand it.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
yeah, but good program. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for calling. Thank you. Lambi, if you don't have, well, you just make a sign when we're ready, and then we'll come back to you. But I think Dr. Thompson Fountain is trying to log back in. So as soon as he let us know when he's on. Thompson, are you back with us? I think it's still taking him a while to get back. So Dr. Andre, Thompson, if you're hearing us, whenever you're available, just come in, and you can join again. But Dr. Andre, I still want to stay on this point, you know, because this thing has been happening for so many years now. And it's time somebody does something about that nonsense. I mean, you cannot tell me that you have people in court for 7 years. And every time they come, and this Judge Williams is so correct. He says he's looking at his books and looking at those, and this what is going on. They're not prosecuting the cases and just keep dragging people in court for foolishness. Isn't it about time that these Dominicans need to end that nonsense? Today it's Thompson Fountain or Lennox Linton, but tomorrow is you. I mean, this cannot be happening in a system like ours in Dominica. Are we still in a democracy or what? And then
yeah, go ahead, Mr. G.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to add this. And then to tell me you want to come in this nonsense, okay, I'm stretching out a hand to Thompson Funk, you know, to somebody. What nonsense is this? Stretching out what hand? I mean, what are you doing? You say you're stretching out a hand and reaching out and want to dissent and talk and so, and you have people handcuffed for 7 years, spending millions of dollars just to keep them handcuffed, and you say you want to talk? What stupidness is that? Yes, Dr. Andre.
Well, you know, the one of the root problems or root reasons why this case is languishing is something called judicial independence. You see, the magistracy, or most of the magistrates, and I hope somebody corrects me if I'm wrong, they're paid by the government. The government has them on a short leash. I remember there were reports when Thompson was in custody that the presiding magistrate allegedly was told in no uncertain terms, if you don't do what I say, or if you don't impose rigorous or strenuous conditions on Thompson, then we will get somebody from Trinidad to come and do it for us. And again, I can't give you the numbers, I don't have them. But disproportionately, magistrates are on contract. Remember what they did to Ozzie Lewis? They forgot to renew his contract. Remember what they did to Tiani? They forgot to renew his contract. Remember what they did to Paquette. They forgot to renew his contract. Coincidence? Well, if you believe that cows can fly, then you will believe it's coincidence. But there is method in that madness. Magistrates, and many of them are good people. I mean, I don't know all of them, but I know a few of them, and these are decent folk who would just love to be able to do their jobs, or allowed to do their jobs, allowed to exercise their judicial discretion. But they're being held in a tight leash. Therein lies the problem. So it's not a magistracy which is independent. On the contrary, if it's independent, then independence in Dominica means something totally different from the judiciary in many of the other islands. Well, I'm not even talking about North America. I'm just talking about some of the other islands. It's a total different concept of independence. And this is eating at Dominica just as much as you have these wood ants? It's not wood ants. What's the name? Termites. Destroying so many wooden homes in Dominica. That's the problem. It's not because these magistrates are bad that they don't know what's right from wrong. It's because, as I said, they're being held on a tight leash. And the simple and unfortunate reality in Dominica as we speak is many persons need their jobs to pay their mortgages, to send their children to school, to live a decent life. I'm not making any excuses for anyone, but I'm saying that is the context in which justice is being administered in Dominica as we speak. That is the problem.
So Dr. Andre, I want to go back at the Thompson Fountain. If you're with us and if you're able to communicate back with us again, just jump in anytime. You know, I can see that you try to log in. I'm not sure.
Yes, I'm back with you.
Are you?
I'm back with you. Yes.
Oh, excellent, excellent, Tom. So we're still on this matter, Thompson. I'm very concerned about this. You know, I mean, Dominicans have to stop allowing all that nonsense to happen to them. I mean, for 7 years, you have people in court who, you know, these charges are frivolous. You have no evidence to support the charges that you're putting forward. And that's the reason why you're postponing and postponing and postponing. Because if you had the evidence that could back up the charges, you would have put that in court long ago to get these people prosecuted, right? But it's obvious that there is no evidence that can stand up in the court. And that is why these charges are not, these prosecutions are not going forward. I just want to know when you guys are going to start filing some civil suits against these people. So, are you still on with us, Thompson?
Yes, sure. Yes, I am. I think indeed we have at least in my case, I've already filed one for wrongful arrest that is going through the court system right now. But certainly there will be others. You know, considering the length of time, the kind of duress that I've had to endure, and the cost that I've had to pay as a result of this legal matter, I'm sure there'll be others as you know, as this case unwinds.
Well, I certainly hope so, and I'm looking forward to this. We have some good young lawyers in Dominica. I think they should take up these cases. Certainly, I listened to the president of the Bar Association, Ms. Noelis Knight, Didier, and she said that lawyers have to start stepping up, because I think she was responding to some of the comments made by the Judge Williams as well, because he said lawyers have to step up and they have to contest this thing. You can't have all this thing happen and you're not saying anything. The system can't be operated like this and lawyers are silent. I think lawyers have to start talking, and they must step up and take some of those cases. I mean, obviously, the lawyers have to get paid, but certainly, I mean, arrangements can be made, but the lawyers have to step up. These cases that to me are obvious that people should file civil suits. You cannot have this kind of, nonsense. But let's go back to this thing, Dr. Andre and Thompson. We started off last year in December with this snap election. Many people just call it a sham snap election. And we're here today with all these problems that happened during the year, all these passport scandals. All of this is because of bad governance, you know. All of this is the result of, because elections have consequences, and that the consequences, these are the consequences of the sham elections. These are the results you got, and therefore this is what you had as a result of those tainted elections as said by the CCJ. And so it seemed to me we have to go back to the question now, because everybody in Dominica wants electoral reform, but not just electoral reform. You want appropriate reform of your electoral laws and your regulations. You want them to be appropriate. Dr. Andrew, you yourself came up with at least 10 or so of those that you're talking to the Electoral Reform Committee about this. It seems to me we are still at that place. And the reason I think it's so important to bring it up now, because the Prime Minister today in a press conference made it known that sometime in the first quarter of 2024, this electoral reform matter is going to go to the Parliament. So it means that somebody somewhere, some attorney is working on preparing those new laws and regulations to be presented to Parliament. I imagine they will take it to send it to the Electoral Commission before they take it to Parliament. But I would expect that Dominicans would demand that before any of that happens, they would have a say in whether they agree with the reforms that are being proposed, the new bills that are being proposed. And Dr. Andre, I believe you were a very integral part of this. Let me hear you on some of that, because it seems to me that we need now to stand up firm and say we must have this thing.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And what better time of year than to ponder just how seriously we take our future? What better time to ponder those wonderful carols we used to sing, these aspirational songs, where we dreamed of a better place both spiritually and temporally. And it's an ideal time because, like I said, what December has meant historically for Dominicans has been perverted. And it's an ugly reality that they associate with December as we speak. Make no mistake about it. I certainly proposed a number of measures.
Let's take a call, Lambert. Sorry, Dr. Andre. Let's take a call from Lambert.
Good evening, caller. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Lambert, and good evening, Mr. G.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Andre, Thompson, and who else in the studio? Everybody, good evening.
How are you?
I'm good. But tonight, I want to satisfy with the contribution Dr. Andre is making, because these are the same question and concern I have in terms of our democracy. To have a functioning state, we must have a system that upholds law and order. And it's a policy. For example, the people of Salisbury had grievance with their farm. They couldn't go in garden. They couldn't make a living then. They couldn't work and feed their family because they haven't got access to their farm. And they brought it up over and over and over and over again to the administration. They never address it. What other choices they have? Demonstrate or civil disobedience. They decide they're going to block the road, at least to get the attention of the authorities. And they respond with tear gas, bullets. They still have a bunch of Salisbury people in court after, I don't know how many years now, maybe 5, 6, 7 years, still dragging them out to the court, and the case cannot call. But here you have as a passport seller coming to Dominica, blocking a road, a public road. Numerous complaints have been made, Mr. G, and nothing happened because that is the guy. And that killing of those people in the South, it lies on the shoulders of Roosevelt Skerrit and the administration. Simple and plain. They are responsible for, because it's not something that happened accidentally. Something like brewing. But again, we have a full-fledged dictator. Mr. G, when a prime minister come in on a press conference, not a political platform, and that's the thing about Roosevelt Skerrit. That's why I say that's some things he does good.
Because every opportunity he gets to speak to the nation, he's speaking on a political platform. And there's a difference between a political platform and governance. You speak on a political platform to win, to assume the reign of government. But when you win, you govern. And every time Roosevelt Skerrit open his mouth, it's like he's on a political platform. We'll give you 2 seats. And it really insults me. Dominica is the people that have to give him. He cannot give the people. He cannot give us 2 seats and then talk about unity. Well, you guys talk about them, the amount of people he have on charges already, and he's talking about unity. Bogus charges for 7 years. If they're guilty, try them. If you find them guilty, let them pay. But you cannot have people for 7 years, again and again, coming up to a court and let postpone. You pay tens of millions of dollars to these foreigners. And you're talking about you want unity. But I have advice for Dr. Fontaine. He should take up Skerrit, call Skerrit bluff, write him an open letter and tell him, yes, we are always and prepared to unite this country, but under this condition. You cannot talk about unity and you have us under persecution. Our hands are handcuffed. And it's a strategy, Mr. G, to broke. He knows to run a successful campaign. You need finance, and he knows that. He has his watches. He's selling all his passports. He have all those criminals, those Ambassador Madwiki, Ambassador Corallo, Ambassador LNG Lapsen, Monfared. So he have his form of getting money, but the opposition, he can penalize them. They have to spend every cent they can in court with lawyers, and the case never recalled. That's a strategy too. You understand? But we have to take up Roosevelt Skerrit head on. You cannot back down. Some people say, oh, don't go down in the mud. But I hear my cousin Hillary Schilling for the make a statement one time. Good night, cause he said sometimes you have to go down in the mud and fight the battle. When you come up, you get nice soap and perfume and roll on and lotion, and you clean yourself. But Mr. G, sometimes you have to take up the fight because there's no other way. What can the people do? Talking about one party state. And some people, the same people are talking about electoral commission. The same people that every time Roosevelt Skerrit doesn't know the difference between campaigning on a political platform and govern. He govern in one set is a police state. See the kind of corruption that's going on in the police. How can you have your entourage, the chief, the hierarchy of the police force, involved in blatant, openly kidnapping? Nowhere on earth that happened. Somebody had to resign. The Attorney General is here talking all his nonsense about a drumstick. And I mean, what kind of representation is that? And Blackmore is the one who said they sent for foreign investigators so it wouldn't look political bias or some kind of nonsense like that I hear. But Blackmore has said that in Parliament. So these guys are definitely a failure, corrupt, incompetent, lazy, greedy, everything, Mr. G. We just have to find a way for Dominican to understand what is happening to us. It's not about blue, red, and green, because everybody feeling the pressure. Business sector, police complaining, bus drivers, farmers, they still have to be catching right. Teachers cannot. I mean, Mr. G, good program. I'm listening. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Bob Marley. Lambi, if you have another call, you'll just give us a little signal and we'll take it. But Dr. Andre, I mean, what a contrast. What a contrast between farmers in Salisbury blocking a road because they are protesting because they want access to their farm so they can make a living to feed their families, to send their children to school, to pay their bills. So they're blocking a road because their farm access roads are in bad shape. And then they end up getting tear gassed and shot at. What a contrast between that and this case in Bois-Côtelette, where for years, this man has been obstructing the public from using a public road. The case went to court. After a judgment was awarded, they were still, I understand, blocking the road. And look at where it ended up. What a serious contrast. And our government people are acting as though, well, I didn't know anything about it. If I had known, and somebody said, well, it's not the role of the AG to do that, it's whoever. And this man was close enough to me, and he even gave me advice on building my pool. But the people are dead, for God's sake, Dr. Andre. And the government could have done something about it, and nothing was done about it. Your thoughts?
Well, the Prime Minister got assistance with his pool in his backyard. But you have Dominicans drowning in a pool of poverty, and they're getting no assistance. None whatsoever. They're being treated as pariahs in their own country. As I said, we have created a class of Rhodesians, white ones, white both literally and symbolically, who are treated as if they are above the law. So as I said, when some of these Caribbean leaders talk about decolonization, what is evident in Dominica is a process of recolonization, a process in which Dominicans, working class Dominicans, are treated as pariahs and second class citizens in their own country. They receive very little relief. Even those who receive a so-called free house, they are hogtied. They are also handcuffed, because if they say a word, Mr. G, against the political directorate, they are literally kicked out of those houses. You remember what happened to a supporter? I only knew him at the grammar school as Monster B. Within 2 hours of his death, the keys were literally wrenched from the hands of his brother, the brother who had reached out for help, just as Pierre Charles reached out for help. What did he do? What did they do to Pierre Charles, Gasson? And that's one of their own. There was no helping hand to offer a loaf of bread, symbolically speaking, to Pierre Charles, to offer some Holy Communion, to offer a symbol of brotherhood. But you have persons who have no organic links to Dominica, who are here courtesy of the sale of Dominican passports, who have been allowed to buy a historical piece of Dominica, who's been allowed to leash dogs. Just shows you the historical insensitivity of a white American being allowed with impunity to unleash dogs on Dominicans without a whimper of protest. This is the Dominica that has been created, hacked out of a democratic tradition. How many police officers, if the news reports I heard are correct, do we need to protect a prime minister? Ah, what the heck, just 47. 47. Which previous leader needed 47 police officers to offer them sanctuary? LeBlanc, Rosie, Patrick John, Edison James, Oliver Seraphin, Eugenia Charles. Which of them? No. Because this whole big thing has been a spectacle of dictatorship. Blatant, in your face, as you can think, quite frankly. No attempted masking. Well, there was some attempt. I mean, when the folks gave themselves rent increases in salary of between 25 and 30%, it was hidden from view. It was hidden in plain sight. The only person who didn't see it was the head of the Public Service Union, He's waiting for the evidence to confirm that that was in fact the case. Well, go ask the nurses if they have any evidence. Go ask teachers if they have any evidence. Go ask public servants if they have any evidence. Go ask NEP workers who haven't been paid for 2 or 3 months. Because their interest doesn't matter. What matters is that the beast has to be fed. The trough has to be kept filled with manna, or should I say, filled by the god of Mammon. And this is the sad state of affairs that we live. So hopefully in the new year, we dream of a better reality, one more deserving. As I've asked rhetorically in the past, Nupa Muntu, are we not entitled to what our fellow citizens are entitled to and take for granted in some of the other islands? A decent living wage, benefits for their children, a dental plan. Are these pie in the sky hopes and aspirations? They're not. Considering the amount of money we have in mysterious accounts, according to someone who knew, namely Zampoli, or whatever it is, or Zandoli, I think it's Zampoli, sorry. You know, why should Dominicans be going through that strife and those hardships when there is money to alleviate poverty and hardships in Dominica? You don't deserve it? Is that what you're telling me? They haven't lived in Dominica long enough? Their parents or grandparents or great-grandparents haven't lived in Dominica long enough for them to have earned the right to receive relief based on funds generated by the sale of their passports. Oh, it cannot be right. How can it be right?
You see, Dr. Andre, okay, so earlier on, somebody sent me a note saying that they think it was the AG, or somebody said it might have been Mr. Blackmore, somebody else who made that statement in the parliament about the fact that they had to engage these foreign attorneys and pay them all this money in order to avoid the semblance of interfering in or political interference. I mean, be that as it may, I mean, is that the point? I mean, what we see, let's just go back to some of the things that we saw happening in the year. I mean, all this wealth that is being flaunted. I mean, is all this, can these people afford it from their regular salaries as public officers? Can they afford this kind of thing? How do they afford it?
After making
Think of that statement. Think of that statement. Let's unpack it. They have retained foreign counsel to avoid the semblance of partiality. That's what you're telling me. There's no impartial counsel in Dominica. Is that what you're trying to tell me? Mr. G, here's a dose of reality. Even as we speak, the political acolytes are distributing ham in Zikak, Portsmouth, even right now as we speak, to their loyal disciples and their loyal sycophants. And they're doing so. The time is now 9:51 in Dominica. In the middle of the night, in a blatantly partisan fashion, with hams purchased by the money of Dominicans, because they're not doing so out of their own pockets. We know that. And there's no deniability. It is just something that is being done. And they're using implicit coercion because the message is simple. It is only if you play with us or you join us that you will get this pittance. It's what you get. The Prime Minister talks about giving the opposition a couple of seats. He talks about giving somebody a house, but he's not giving because you don't have title. Go for a job, or my pal rep sent me. So nobody is talking about enabling Dominicans to produce.
Well, this is the point. That is what I was going to get to, Dr. Andre. You see, because I'm glad that you raised that. Because remember, when we were growing up in Dominica, so you want to take a call, Lambi? Go right ahead before we continue.
Go ahead, please, caller.
Yeah, Mr. Gisney, again, I got a quick question for Dr. Andre.
Yes.
Dr. Andre, I was wondering if the opposition forces, when I say opposition forces, I mean Lennox Linton, Edison James, Thompson Fountain, and all these guys that been on these charges for so long. Can they file a lawsuit asking the lower court, like the magistrate court and the high court, to grant them a stay and take it straight to the CCJ and have that thing decide, let the CCJ decide on that case again? Because after 7 years, I don't see where there's any case. So I just wanted to know if the magistrate court or the high court would grant them a stay instead of going through this and just take it to the CCJ and let the CCJ decide. Thank you.
Well, I can tell you, Bob Marley, that they can certainly bring an application seeking a stay of the charges because of unreasonable delay. It's unconscionable. I mean, many cases, not just in Canada, but in any Commonwealth jurisdiction, speak about the exquisite agony that one faces when one is charged with any criminal offense. Because there's such an animal called the presumption of innocence. And I can tell you, they would not be able to take it straight to the CCJ after there's a decision in the magistrate's court, because obviously there's a Supreme Court, there's a Court of Appeal in the islands and so on. But again, there may be some twist, some particularly wrinkle in the law in Dominica that has not permitted counsel to bring an application to stay the charges or to stop the prosecution in its tracks. This is something which is done in Canada all the time, virtually every day. As I said, in our equivalent of the magistrate's court, the amount of permissible delay is 18 months. If it's more than that, there has to be exceptional circumstances. For example, the death of some person, somebody being sick during the COVID period. The COVID epidemic was one of those exceptional circumstances that made a delay in excess of 18 months tolerable. Something exceptional, you know? But when you have a Judge Justice Williams saying that magistrates are coming in at 10, people are waiting, garçon, probably stopping and picking up some kai somewhere, that type of thing. The whole thing is a joke, you know, but it all goes to the question of judicial independence. As I said, I know some of these folk. I'm not going to call any names. I say with confidence, some of these magistrates are decent, law-abiding, well, not just law-abiding, who would do their jobs if they were given the latitude to do so. But many of them are held on a short leash. And there's evidence as to what happens if you step out of your bounds, if you don't do what I say. You know, that is not the way to run and operate a criminal justice system. The most important bedrock of any justice system is what is termed judicial independence. Let me repeat again. Go and ask Ozzie Lewis, ask Tiani, ask Paquette. And there's another one, but I'm not 100% sure if my information is correct, whose contract was not renewed because it was felt that he was not as obedient to the electorate, the political directorate, as he should be. And who is paying the price? Law-abiding citizens in Dominica are being penalized strictly on partisan political lines. That is the tragedy, and that is a symptom of a full-blown dictatorship. Simple as that.
Dr. Andrea, I want to, before we wrap here tonight, I want to go back to this housing question, because you see, this government has been with us for about 24 years now, just about 24 years. During that 24 years, we saw so many industries disappear from the face of Dominica. So many manufacturing concerns, so many industries, hotels, locally owned businesses. We saw people like those agro industries, people making herbal stuff, teas, spices, herbs, candles, plastic, shoes, all kind of things were made in Dominica. There was a time when we were exporting $180 million in bananas alone. Over the last 25 years, the people of Dominica have got very impoverished because we've lost all those investments. Look at Ross University, the kind of contribution they were making to the economy. We lost that. The people of Portsmouth lost a lot of income. The point I'm trying to make is that I know that there are people who deserve houses, who deserve free houses, but for God's sake, if they deserve the houses, give them the titles. What is taking so long? It's taking 5 years to issue a title to a property to somebody. How long does it take to fix a piece of paper and give it to people in their hands so they can know they can live for their children when they're gone? That is nonsense. I mean, these people should stop tolerating that thing. If you either deserve it or you don't deserve it, if you deserve it, give them the title. But the point I want to make is this. Many people in Dominica under many different governments have got homes. They were not free homes. They were able to pay for their homes, to take a little loan at the credit union or the bankers and pay for their home. Why? Because they had jobs, because they had income, because they were independent. They did not need to depend on a politician to come and tell him, okay, check your pile, rep, or I'll help you out and give you. No, people were independent. And people in Belfast, they owned their homes. People in St. Joseph own their homes. People own their homes all over the place in years gone by. Why is it that this economy has been dragged? Was it deliberate and intentional to drag down the economy so far, impoverish people, to create that dependency syndrome on politicians? Because certainly the farmers are doing so well, as you can recall, Dr. Andre, it's going to buy cash. Take cash and go and pay for their vehicles. Why did we allow this thing to happen to us? Nowadays, you see a set of people, foreigners, in all the little business places in Roseau and all over the place, and Dominicans on the sidewalk, on the tents, over the drain, doing business. I mean, what kind of nonsense is this? I mean, what has happened to us? Can Dominicans see that they have to stand up for their rights and do something, otherwise their children will have nothing?
Mr. G, even as we speak, there's a truck in Portsmouth on the hospital road handing out hams to the faithful and to the devoted, to the exclusion of everybody else. So you can call Pat Corbett, for example, just an example, and ask him if he saw that truck. I suspect I know what the answer is, but that's the reality that we face, even at Christmas. Even in December, when you would expect us as a community to rise to the occasion and embrace the cause of brotherhood, this blatant, toxic political partisanship is going on unabated in Dominica as we speak. Let me ask you this. Who benefits when Dominicans are employed? Who benefits when Dominicans earn a living wage? Who benefits when nurses, teachers, public workers receive a wage which could give them a little comfort and probably enable them to save a little money? I have to say under their mattress, because right now you can't even save in the credit union, for God's sakes. Who benefits? Huh?
Well,
It's Dominican merchants. You see what you expect Dominicans to grow pigs under their house, just so that they don't buy pigs at the market? Huh? Who benefits when Dominicans earn a living wage? What you think they send the money to foreigners or to foreign countries? They spend it in Dominica, Mr. G. So Dominica benefits. They patronize local stores, local shops, local supermarkets. in the people, vendors at the market, and so on. But when you boast about how much foreigners ship out of your country, Mr. G, who Misha stay at you.
Well, well, remember, I'm not the one who said that we exported $213 million.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was you. Sorry.
Don't blame me. No, I'm not the one who said that foreigners are sending out all these $213 million into the country. In other words, if that $213 million had stayed in Dominica, as you said, you see how much cash registers will be ringing all over the place in the supermarkets and in the shops and in the grocery place in the old market. This money would be circulated in the economy, creating more jobs, right? Creating capital, hotels, and so on, getting restaurants, getting their share. But a friend, somebody sent me a message here. They put it another way, Dr. Andrew. Let me just read that message, the WhatsApp message I received. And the person is saying, in a world beset by headline-grabbing crises, including the various conflicts that are destroying lives and economies, the unchecked piping of dirty money may not register as an immediate threat, but the consequences are profound. Members of this corrupt regime of ill-gotten fortunes and consolidated power, what's passing as governments starved of revenue, can't afford medicine to treat the sick, or pay public servants' salaries, and fail to pay the tuition of overseas students, yet they're giving themselves raises. This corrupt regime of Dominica has created a state of mendicancy to control the masses. We have seen efforts to muzzle the media and tainting of the judiciary system while persecuting political opponents. I mean, in what playbook do you see that? This thing is straight out of certain playbooks. And it seems to me that Dominicans need to wake up and smell the roses. Listen, we're talking about the year in review. Dominicans are not better off today than they were in December of 2022, that's for sure. They're not better off. I mean, inflation has taken its toll, cost of living has gone up, everything has gone up. I mean, the WASCO is now saying, we want a raise, we want to increase the water. Everybody wants to increase everything because you have to increase everything. The point, the country is not producing. The country is not exporting. No money is coming in from outside. No revenue is coming. Then our policymakers say, if not passports, then what? They say agriculture was a has-been industry. All of a sudden, it's agriculture. They're talking about agriculture now because the opposition was pushing the whole notion of agriculture. All of a sudden, because the passport money is drying up. So now we have to pretend that we're interested in agriculture. Let's try and tell the farmers, okay, we want to do this and that. But it's not happening. I mean, why is it that somebody can just buy up all the farmers' produce and export it? Buy up all the farmers' produce and process it and create products from it. If they're interested in it, they could have done that because there's so much money that was coming from this passport thing. Instead of keeping $6-7 billion out there, why don't you bring it in and fix up the structures of the main pillars of your economy? Boost your agriculture. All these young people who are making all these fantastic products in Dominica from local natural resources, great products, healthy products, good products for your skin, good medicines and so. Why not give these people money? Give them $100,000 each and let them go and fine-tune their craft and grow into manufacturing and processing operation that can export and employ people. That is what we should be doing. Instead, the money is sitting there and people say, well, if I go and bring all of it in, so and so. It is time for this money to come back into the treasury as the European Union has recommended, strongly recommended, so we can fix our economy. And that is why I'm sorry that we lost Dr. Thompson Fontaine, because he was on the road driving from Soufriere. So I imagine he has pockets where he doesn't have internet. But, I'm really hoping that we can continue that discussion because it seems to me, Dr. Andre, we have to talk about going forward because we've seen all the problems. I mean, it's clear. Now we have to deal with solutions going forward. Part of that solution, of course, is electoral reform, having free and fair elections, bringing back good governance. But then bringing back good governance is one thing. But that good governance now has to have a program that is going to develop the country, develop the natural resources, add value to them, create a job, release empower the youth, release their potential to create, to be productive and to create stuff. Do stuff that the world wants that you can sell to them, and create prosperity in the country, create wealth for the young. Why should young people have to go in an NEP program cutting grass by the road and so on? I mean, let the people, empower them so that they can release all of their true potential. Let them self-actualize so they can be who they want to be, not just tell me they must go and be an NEP worker. They shouldn't have to be if you don't want to be. We must create those opportunities for them. So it's important, I think, for us to go back and come back now to another program. And I hope Dr. Thompson Fountain and some other people will be able to join us, talk about the way forward. Because we can no longer stay where we are. There's too much mendicancy, too much dependence, too much poverty. It cannot last. This thing is going to degenerate to a point where people are going to get so desperate that crime will increase. I remember years ago, there's a good friend of mine, a man for whom I have great respect, Dr. Francis Severin. He said he made a statement about this question of crime. And he said, if we allow this thing to fester, it's going to get bad. Look now, you see how we end up? Guns missing from our police station. Guns missing. And the minister says he's going to bring in people from outside to investigate that. Guns are missing. Just the other day you said to people, I have an amnesty. Bring all your guns. They got 3. Now you know what's missing? All kind of big weapons missing. The people who came and took them probably took those 3 that they brought back in. Those 3 probably gone too. So that amnesty thing for 3 months. 3 guns. I suspect those 3 guns disappeared with all the other 9 or so that disappeared there. I mean, I understand. I heard Matt saying that the police were up in Warner somewhere today looking. I don't know. I'm not sure that we haven't heard that they found anything. But the point is, I mean, when they, I don't know, Dr. Andre. It seems to me that this thing is getting hopeless. I want to hear politicians making light and making jokes at press conferences about all kind of things. And while you're making jokes and saying this man helped me to fix my pool, the fact of the matter is that there are thousands and thousands of Dominicans going out there in a serious way, There's a serious amount of poverty. Some people don't know where the next meal is coming from. There are students out there in the United States who don't know whether they can complete their course and graduate after they will make promises. You understand? So it seems to me we have to take this serious. We're talking about human beings' lives at stake here, This is not a hypothetical situation we're talking about. We're talking about people's lives. Poor people. Listen, I saw during the course of that year again, Dr. Andre, I saw some vendors on the bayfront. The vendors of these people work very hard. Some of these people have worked very hard. They send their children to school based on the work they're doing out there. They work hard, long hours. They were moved. I'm not even sure where they were moved to. I don't know how well they're doing, but the point is, these people who are vendors, they're some of the backbone of the country. We have to take care of these people. I remember when we were doing the Creole Music Festival, one of the things we took a decision that vendors must make money from the Creole Music Festival, our local vendors. You cannot put them aside and act as though they are part of it. The revenue must circulate these people. Today, I see our vendors being treated as though they're a serious part of our economy. And we have to take those people very seriously. Okay? So it really hurts my heart for me to see what is happening there now. I mean, oh boy. I mean, it's so hard to take when you look at people, the amount that people are taking. Why should people take all of that? It's not, you listen, elections have consequences. And the reason the CCJ said do not have the election, it's tainted. That is what they meant, because if you have tainted elections, you'll get tainted consequences. And that is what we're reaping now from those tainted. If you're tainted your election, you don't expect to get good governance. It's not going to happen. And so my advice as we leave here tonight, Dr. Andre, Dominicans have to ensure, and all those groups, I think Dominicans need to unite now. It's forget about this fragmentation, little units, little groups here and there. Dominicans have to unite now and make their demands. Electoral reform is something that you must have. You must level the playing field. Okay, you must do that. And you must allow free and fair elections. Dominicans have to demand that because their lives are not improving. They must demand that, and they must make sacrifices. Everybody swallow their pride, get together, and stand for it, because that is what is needed. Have free and fair elections, have good governance, have a good plan, fix the economy, fix the lives of the people. So people don't have to come and say, okay, I will wait 20 years, I'll say nothing, I might get a house. And if they give me one, I can't, I will not say anything because they might take it back from me. No, you have to become independent so that you can work. A lot of people now cannot speak because they really depend on some of those things that they're getting. You understand that. But we shouldn't subject our people to that. For how much longer are we going to subject our people to that? I think we need to fix this economy. We need to for do that, we need to have good governance. And I think we should make a serious move to ensure that we have good governance. Absolutely nothing against anybody at all. But I think any government that is there for 20 years, they've overstayed. They have overstayed. It's time for them to go. They should have gone when they were 10 years. I mean, 24 years in which country? Where on earth you have people keeping the government? No, in the Caribbean, they're doing that anymore. Dr. Andre, your thoughts?
Well, all I can say is that I think we as a people, we should want to see everyone doing well as they could. We shouldn't begrudge anyone any earnings that they may have on account of the sweat of their brows. We shouldn't deny anyone assistance where that is warranted on the basis of political affiliation. We shouldn't keep people in abject poverty by paying them minimum wages. We shouldn't be creating discord in Dominica by discriminating against others. We shouldn't be taking the fruits of our taxes and only giving it to those who support us. And in an ideal world, even those who receive those benefits, i.e. hams at Christmas, on a basis of political affiliation, hopefully some of them will reacquire their conscience and say, I will give it to someone more deserving than I. Frankly, I don't remember growing up, when I grew up in Dominica, in Portsmouth, then in Goodwill, I don't remember that hams were so much of an attraction.
But we didn't have lights.
I know it was expensive. I can tell you the only thing that I didn't like too much was when my mother brought the little pullet to the outside, where you have the pipe, because I knew exactly what was going to happen. But at least we were thankful for having something. Peas, a little rice, a little provisions, which I always love, and enjoying the basic things that give so much pleasure. There's nobody craved for things like Hennessy or Johnny Walker Black as a measure of this newly acquired status. It did not mean much then. What meant a lot was that everyone had enough to be happy and to be satisfied. And that is the essence of leadership, is it not? That everyone is afforded or accorded an opportunity to live a decent life, one they can have a little comfort, particularly at special times such as at Christmas. Not persons who have to sit on their porches seeing that truck or that van distributing the fruits of their own taxes, and they are ignored or treated as if they had the plague. That is an abomination. Dominicans deserve better. They deserve better. They deserve what their compatriots or whether their fellow West Indians are taken for granted in their respective islands. It's as simple as that. We should not be operating on that old class structure that we inherited from our colonial masters, that a few shall enjoy a disproportionate share of the wealth of Dominica, while the others come a begging, asking for 2 seats, asking for a ham, asking for some fried back and neck, or whatever it is. Give them an opportunity to be able to acquire what they need and to acquire whatever comforts they need in their own respective lives. They should not be rendered as spectators in their own country. Jonathan, unleashing dogs, I cannot get over that. Huh? In Dominica, Gaza. In a previous program, I told you how Edward Oliver dealt with an analogous situation. I know there's no D8 or whatever they call it, DC8 caterpillars today. But that situation could have been straightened out, because it was not just a situation involving Danny Langlois, but one involving the people of Soufriere, Gallia, and Scots Head. They deserved to be employed and paid a decent wage to provide for themselves and their children, to acquire a modicum of independence, rather to be put in a house and spend more money on perfume to mitigate the stench of the sewage, and to keep their mouth shut because any word contrary to the directorate will garner for them a boot to be thrown out of the door. Is that what we've been reduced to? A state of beggary? Clapping as if we're in North Korea at the most nonsensical utterance of the leader. I'm sorry. That cannot be what we're accepting. We deserve better. And, I think that we will, as a community, realize that we deserve better. Dominicans are bright people. Dominicans are resourceful people. They've proved their resourcefulness historically many times. They're hardworking people. Many of them have farms, although if they allow themselves, as the Wesley people have allowed themselves, to be deprived of their ancestral lands, they will not have it. Because the place is for sale. Anything goes. Parrots, Botanic Gardens, Wesley, you name it. The lands where the PWD was, the Goodwill School Savannah, concreted. You can't play anything there. Again. But we can't just sit back and look while every aspect and component of nationhood is being taken away in plain sight. If you don't stand up for your future, then what are you prepared to stand up for? That's the question, Mr. G. That's the fundamental question.
Well, that is a fundamental question. But then, as we wrap, Dr. Andre, one of the things we saw, some pictures on going around on the internet, on the social media, we saw pictures of a bunker. I mean, this is the kind of thing you see in Gaza, in Iraq, in Iran, wherever. A serious bunker, really serious bunker. I'm not sure where that is, but some people claim it is somewhere in Dominica. I'm not sure where that is, but if that is in Dominica, and if that is in that place up there in Soufriere, that's a serious thing. Nobody knew about this. If it is there, all of a sudden, we're only discovering this and that at this late stage. Is that what is going on in Dominica now? I mean, people are starving. I mean, literally starving. People just cannot make ends meet. And that is what is going on there. And we turn a blind eye as if we don't know about it. And then when people die, we come out there crying crocodile tears. What about their families who are left to mourn in Montreal or in Quebec? All the workers in Soufrière, all the people that they have that done a lot for, all the schools that they did and so on, all these people's children who were educated in these preschools and so on because of those people. You know, is that now we're going to cry cola when you could have stopped it so long ago? And Dr. Andre, listen, we have to really get serious about this thing now, you know. I mean, this thing cannot continue because where is it going to lead? If our students cannot get their fees paid after they give them scholarships, if our people cannot get jobs, if the farmers cannot export their produce, the young people who have great ideas and they want to be productive cannot get the capital to do what they want to do, to give themselves some wealth and some independence. If people cannot have enough of income to be able to pay a little loan at the credit union so that they can own their own home so politicians can cut style on them. If their credit union is under threat because they want the credit union to pay all kind of fees so that people will get less, the poor people will get less. That is not what Sister Alicia had in mind when she started the credit union. It was supposed to be a poor people's thing. Why on earth you want to go and touch the poor people's money? You have people giving away millions of dollars of passport money, building all kind of things, and it's costing them not a black cent. It's all passport revenue. And yet you have some serious young people who have great potential, want to add value to the natural resources of the country. You wouldn't give them $100,000, $200,000, $250,000 to build themselves up, build their economy, empower them, create some real structures in the economy, create a real economy. You know, I don't understand what's going on. That's why I said, no, we have to come back and talk about going forward. Maybe we'll try to come back on Thursday night if we can. But we need to come back and talk about the way forward because this is the Christmas time. It's the end of the year. We're going to start a new year, 2024. Hopefully, there will be electoral reform. Hopefully, we'll have free and fair elections. Hopefully, we'll get some good governance coming out of that. But once we do that, we have to ensure that there's a good program in place so that the people of Dominica can benefit for a change because they're not benefiting now. All this passport money is not there. It's outside. And I'm not sure what is going on. These people who say they have houses, it's not giving them titles, so it's not theirs. Until they have a title in their hand, it's not theirs. So where's the wealth going to? Who has it? Bonkers, that's what we're getting in building Dominica. Dogs running after people now. What Dominicans come into in their own country? We cannot really tolerate those kind of things. I think we have to do better. We have to build our economy, build our people, empower our people. So nobody has to worry about anybody else doing this and that. You just want to empower your people so people can be independent and live free. So basically, this is my view, Dr. Andre. I don't know what you want to say in closing as we leave here tonight, because we have a lot of people I did not even acknowledge on Facebook. I mean, lots of people making a lot of comments there on Facebook. We didn't get to read any of them because there's very, very good comments, very good ideas coming out. And I can see why, if we can meet again soon in the next couple of days, we can share some of those ideas with some of those people who are on Facebook, who are not on the program with us and who are listening, and we'll take more calls because I'm pretty sure we'll get a lot of ideas from people. But I think we have to get beyond this point of bad governance. We know elections have consequences. We have to have free and fair elections so we can put good governance in place. No matter who, I don't care. Good governance is what you want, right? And then to create a program to empower the people of Dominica. They deserve it. Your final words, Dr. Andre?
Yes, well, before I utter a few words here, let me thank you and Lambie and Showin at the back and your faithful listeners to your program, Dominicans, for listening. Let me echo my wish that as that well-known Christmas carol states that that Dominicans will no longer sleep in heavenly peace. I'd like to see them awake in heavenly peace. I would like to see them empower themselves because they deserve everything that their fellow Caribbean citizens have and enjoy and protect. They deserve a decent life. They deserve respect. They are people of integrity. They should be able to have a living wage, to enjoy a decent life, to provide for their children, to acquire a nest egg for their future. Because Dominica will benefit if the people are in a position where they live comfortable lives. They will be spending in businesses and institutions owned by Dominicans. They will not be sending money to other countries, as is evident in Dominica, something we boast about. They would become disgruntled if their heritage is being squandered and is being stolen, quite frankly. Because ordinary, decent, peace-loving, law-abiding people, reasonable people, that's how they would react, with indignation and anger that their heritage is being taken from them. Because these folk have worked hard, many of them, most of them, the majority of them. And why should they not reap what they sow? It's a biblical injunction. You shall reap what you sow. And to look at the spectacle of them sacrificing their own possessions, literal and otherwise, and to allow those possessions to be taken away, it's a very sad occasion, quite frankly. It's a very sad occasion. But again, it seems to me that sometimes the good book has taught us that even in the darkest hour of some of people or persons or individuals, there is hope. Because each of us, we have an inner strength. We may not realize it. We may not have tapped into it as yet. But inevitably, many of us will discover that inner strength and that inner hunger that we have, and that decency, and that desire, obsession for good, for goodness, which will repel all evil. And so even as the landscape appears to be darkened by clouds of despair, I am internally hopeful that we're going to have a bright, bright, sunny day. It's just a matter of time. So to those who've taken the time to listen to us, I say thank you. And I say to them, don't underestimate the man or the woman they see in the mirror. Good night to you, Mr. G.
Thank you for all of this, Dr. Andrew, and thank you so much for all the folks who are with us on Facebook and listening to us by various means. I just want to say this as we close, that really and truly, Dominicans are basically nice people, you know. Dominicans are hardworking people. Dominicans are smart. They work hard, but they also are able to work smart. What they need is an opportunity to do that, just like they did before. And when they had the opportunity under people like Libel and the others, they got wealthy. They got wealthy. When you allow Dominicans who work hard to work smart, they develop wealth. That is what this country needs again. Instead of people going, you should see people prospering, because those same people you see walking around going, these people have the ability to create wealth. What they need is a chance. But you see, a select few people have that opportunity, great wealth, but the majority of the people have nothing. I have no problem with people who have great wealth. But I have a problem when the ordinary people cannot make ends meet. We have to create an enabling environment with the right policies to ensure that the people of Dominica, the ordinary folk in Dominica, whether it's fishermen or farmers or contractors or whatever it is, ordinary Dominicans, they have to take back their rightful place in their country once more. There was a time, Dr. Andre, you call everywhere you go in Rose, it was owned, the store was belonging to a Dominican. There was a Dominican proprietor everywhere you go. All of a sudden, other people are there selling chicken. What are you bringing people to sell chicken for? Let them come invest in factories and in industries for export, employ hundreds of people. So we need to really, Dominicans need to look after themselves now. Nobody's going to do it for them. And I personally feel I'm prepared to give as much advice as I can in helping any way that I can. So I think we'll come back here and before the end of this year, maybe on Thursday, we'll come back and we'll talk about some solutions going forward. And I would like to start off, Dr. Andre, by saying the first thing we need to do in the first quarter of 2024 is to get electoral reform, take it, demand it and take it, have free and fair elections within months after that. Once you put all the laws and regulations in place, the new laws and put them in place, have free and fair elections, get good governance, a good team of people, unite the country for God's sake. Why 70,000 people on a piece of rock, which is 20 miles by 15 miles? A big football stadium holding more than 70,000 people. Are you trying to tell me we cannot manage that successfully? Everybody should be okay. Why should some people be going and out? Everybody should be okay. It's not difficult for the state to look after everybody's interests by creating that enabling environment. So those who want to be enterprising can do their enterprises and be successful. Those who want jobs can get jobs and get living wages. Everybody should be okay on Dominica. And so I think we'd like to come back here and talk about those things to see how best we can move forward with that from 2024. So thank you so much, Lambie, so much, Sherwin. Dr. Andre, thanks a lot. Tom, we lost Dr. Fontaine because he was in Soufriere, empathizing with the people of Soufriere. And then he was on the road, so we lost him there. But I'm hoping that the next time we meet, he'll be with us again. And some other folks will be with us. Let's talk about building an economy, building our society, and fixing up our people going forward. So good night, everybody on Facebook and on Radio Land. Good night, Dr. Andre.
Good night, sir.
Thompson.
Gentlemen,
Lambie, just showing everybody. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Next time.
Wonderful.
Okay, bye.
Give love on Christmas Day. 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 In these times, you gotta give a little. In these times, you gotta take a little. It don't matter where you're coming from. All I know that we're moving on. Just reach out and give a helping hand. And I know that you will understand and give love.